part of the reason we've been able to do 10 albums, and not really be superstars or anything.
They call him the voice of the American heartland, the blue-collar poet who sang about Friday nights and fading dreams. Bob Seger never chased trends or tried to be cool. He just told the truth with a raspy voice and a piano that could break your heart. But before he became the soundtrack to a million memories, he was a kid in Michigan spinning records until dawn.
Aerosmith, they were just starting out, Bachman Turner Overdrive, Kiss, when they were just starting out.
Seger didn't invent rock and roll. He lived it. Every song he wrote came from somewhere real, from the records that played in diners and dive bars, from the music that made sense when nothing else did. He wasn't trying to be an artist, he was trying to survive. And the albums that saved him became the foundation for everything he built. These 7 records weren't background music. They were blueprints for how to make people feel something real, how to turn 3 minutes of sound into a lifetime of emotion. Bob Seger learned from the masters, then made it his own. Here are the albums that shaped the Heartland rocker, the records that taught him how to turn pain into poetry. 7. After School Session.
To you especially, I took it on my own.
Chuck Berry invented the language before anyone knew they'd be speaking it. His 1957 album, After School Session, wasn't just songs. It was the instruction manual for rock and roll. Johnny B. Goode told stories that every kid with a guitar would understand. School Days captured teenage frustration in 3 chords. Maybelline had that driving rhythm that made you want to move. Seger grew up on this stuff.
And I just feel more comfortable with that, and I think that's where I'll remain.
Berry didn't sing about abstract concepts or fancy poetry. He sang about cars and girls and getting out of town. Real life set to music that made your pulse race. The guitar licks were simple but perfect. The lyrics painted pictures anyone could see. Berry proved you didn't need complicated arrangements to say something powerful. What Berry taught Seger was storytelling through rock, how to take everyday moments and make them feel epic, how to write about ordinary people without making them sound small. Night Moves, Turn the Page, Against the Wind. All those Seger classics come from Berry's DNA, the idea that regular life deserves anthems too. Chuck Berry showed that rock and roll belonged to everyone, not just the pretty ones or the rich ones. The kid working at the gas station had stories worth telling. The girl at the diner had dreams worth singing about. Seger carried that torch his entire career. He became Berry's heir without ever trying to be Berry himself. 6. Here's Little Richard.
Womp bom loom bom lom bom bom to the boot, oh to the boot.
Little Richard didn't whisper. He screamed creation itself into existence. That 1957 debut was pure electricity in vinyl form. Tutti Frutti exploded out of nowhere with that opening howl. Rip It Up shook the floorboards. Ready? Teddy refused to slow down for anyone. This wasn't music you sat still for. It demanded movement, demanded life. For Seger, Little Richard represented pure, unleashed energy.
And I write way too many songs, that I don't use, but then I get to steal from myself too, so.
No filters, no second guessing, just raw feeling translated directly into sound. Richard pounded those piano keys like he was trying to break through to tomorrow. His voice hit notes that shouldn't have been humanly possible. And he did it all with a smile that said he knew exactly how dangerous he was. This was freedom in its purest form. Richard didn't care what people thought. He wore what he wanted. He moved how he felt. He made the music that came from his soul without asking permission first. Seger watched and learned that authenticity beats everything else, that the best performances come from letting go completely. When Seger grabbed that microphone and let his voice crack with emotion, Richard's spirit was there. When he played 3-hour shows and left everything on stage, that was Richard's lesson learned. You give the people everything you've got, you hold nothing back. You make them remember they were alive for those 2 hours. Little Richard didn't just perform, he testified. And Seger became a preacher of the same gospel. 5. Modern sounds in country and western music. In 1962, Ray Charles did something nobody expected. He took country music, the whitest genre in America, and made it soul. Modern sounds in country and Western music shouldn't have worked. Country and R&B weren't supposed to mix, but Charles didn't care about supposed to. I Can't Stop Loving You became massive. You Don't Know Me ached with universal loneliness. Born to Lose turned heartbreak into something beautiful. Seger heard this and understood something crucial.
This is the highest Billboard chart debut for you ever.
First week, yeah, right. It was great.
Genres were just labels. Good songs were good songs, no matter where they came from. Charles took Hank Williams and made him cry differently. He took Nashville and gave it a Detroit soul. The emotion was what mattered, not the category. This album gave Seger permission to blur lines, to take rock and add country twang, to mix blues with pop sensibility, to let ballads sit next to barn burners without apologizing. Against the Wind has country in its bones. We've Got Tonight could be Nashville or Motor City. Seger never worried about staying in his lane because Ray Charles proved lanes were imaginary. What Charles really taught was respect for the song itself. It didn't matter who wrote it or what style it started as. If the melody was strong and the emotion was real, you could make it yours. Seger covered songs his whole career, always finding something new in someone else's words. That came directly from watching Ray Charles turn other people's music into his own truth. 4. Sticky Fingers. The Stones in 1971 were dangerous in the best way. Sticky Fingers opened with Brown Sugar, all controversy and swagger. Wild Horses broke your heart with gentle honesty. Can't You Hear Me Knocking jammed for 7 minutes and never got boring. This was a band at their absolute peak. Hungry, confident, and willing to go anywhere the music demanded. Seger loved the attitude.
And maybe watching a good movie or, anything, other music.
The Stones didn't beg you to like them. They played what they felt, and if you came along, great. If you didn't, they'd be fine. There was a toughness to this album that matched Seger's own blue-collar ethos. The Stones sang about drugs and heartbreak and living on the edge, but underneath was real vulnerability. What struck Seger most was the band's ability to shift gears. They could rock hard, then turn around and deliver something tender without losing credibility. Dead Flowers was country-fried and honest. Moonlight Mile floated like a dream. The Stones proved you could be tough and sensitive in the same breath. This album taught Seger about range, that you didn't have to be one thing. Rock and Roll Never Forgets came from the same place as Main Street. The hard-driving rocker and the nostalgic balladeer could be the same person. Sticky Fingers showed that complexity made you more interesting, not less. Those audiences were smart enough to follow you wherever you needed to go. 3. The exciting Wilson Pickett. Soul doesn't get more raw than Wilson Pickett in 1966. The exciting Wilson Pickett lived up to its name. In the midnight hour, grooved with purpose. Land of 1,000 dances made you move whether you wanted to or not. 634-5789 turned a phone number into a celebration. Pickett's voice was sandpaper and honey mixed together, rough but sweet. Seger studied Pickett's vocal delivery like a textbook. The way he could growl and shout, then pull back to almost a whisper. The control within the chaos. Pickett sang like every word physically hurt to get out, but he couldn't stop if he tried. That commitment to emotional honesty became Seger's trademark too. This was a blue-collar soul, working man's music. Pickett wasn't smooth like some of his Motown contemporaries. He was gritty, real, sweating through every note. Seger connected to that immediacy, the sense that the performance was happening right now, not polished in a studio for weeks, live feeling captured on tape. What Pickett gave Seger was the understanding that your voice is your signature. Don't try to pretty it up or make it something it's not. Let it crack. Let it strain. Let it show the miles you've traveled. When Seger sang about the road or lost time, You believed him because his voice carried the proof. That came directly from listening to Wilson Pickett pour his entire life into 3-minute songs. 2. Revolver.
Let me tell you how it will be.
By 1966, the Beatles had stopped being a pop group and started being something else entirely. Revolver was where it all clicked. Eleanor Rigby used strings like a knife. Tomorrow Never Knows sounded like the future arriving early. Here, There, and Everywhere was impossibly beautiful. I'm Only Sleeping bent reality. The album moved through genres like they didn't exist. Seger wasn't trying to copy the Beatles' experimentation, but Revolver showed him that ambition was allowed.
My idea was help my local state economy. It's exactly what John does with the farmers and stuff like.
That you could push yourself beyond the expected formula. The Beatles wrote about loneliness, about getting older, about seeing the world differently. They made introspection sound urgent and universal at the same time. What hit Seger hardest was the songwriting craft. Every line mattered. Every melody had purpose. The Beatles weren't just throwing words at a catchy tune. They were architects, building something that would last. Got to Get You Into My Life had that horn section that made you feel alive. For No One ached with quiet devastation. Each song was its own world. This album taught Seger that commercial success and artistic integrity weren't enemies. The Beatles proved you could challenge your audience and still have them singing along. Night Moves took risks with structure and storytelling because Revolver proved audiences were ready for complexity. You didn't have to dumb it down, you just had to make it feel true. 1. Live at the Harlem Square Club.
All where the people are so gay, twisting the night away. Oh man,
This is the one. Recorded in 1963 but not released until 1985. This album captured Sam Cooke like nobody had heard him before. Not the smooth crooner from the radio, the real Sam Cooke, sweating in a Florida nightclub, working the crowd into a frenzy. Bring It On Home to Me stretched into an epic call and response. Having a party became exactly that. This was church, and Saturday night rolled into one explosive performance. Seger calls this the greatest live album ever made. You can hear why.
Face the Promise did really well as well. Was a platinum album, and so now.
Cooke controlled that room like a master preacher. He'd whisper, then shout, he'd tease, then deliver. The crowd wasn't watching a show. They were part of something spiritual. Every yeah and come on from Cooke built the energy higher until it felt like the whole place might lift off. What this album taught Seger was everything about live performance. It's not about hitting the notes perfectly. It's about connection. About making every person in that room feel like you're singing directly to them. Cooke's voice was incredible, but his real gift was presence. He made you believe. When Seger took the stage, this was his Bible. The way Cooke built a song from gentle to explosive. The way he let the band breathe and the crowd participate. The understanding that a concert is a conversation, not a lecture. Live at the Harlem Square Club proved that the best moments happen when you stop trying to control everything and just let the music take over. Sam Cooke showed Seger that soul and rock weren't different languages. They were both about the same thing, making people feel something real in a world that tried to numb them. About creating moments that people would carry with them long after the music stopped. That voice, that presence, that absolute command of the moment. That's what Seger chased his entire career. Bob Seger never pretended to be something he wasn't. He was a kid from Detroit who loved records and learned from the best. These 7 albums didn't just influence his sound, they shaped his soul. From Chuck Berry's storytelling to Sam Cooke's presence, every lesson stuck. The Heartland Rocker was built on these foundations. If these stories connect with you, subscribe and join us. Drop your favorite album in the comments. The records that shaped you matter too.